Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with your charismatic host and prominent safety expert, Dr. David Perodin. Be entertained and informed as the Safety Doc discusses both best and bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. The truth will keep you safe. Follow Dr. Perodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD.
Hi everybody, and welcome to this festive episode of the Safety Doc Podcast. So a few things have happened here. One is my main desktop computer that I use to record these podcasts and then to render them with the special effects intro and things like that. That machine has crashed. The tech guy was here looking at it a couple hours, was able to get it up and running to the point where I could harvest files off of it, and he is in the process of building a new one, which hopefully will be here next week, and then will be up and running, because I do have the new C920 Logitech camera, and also the box is right here for my Blue Yeti microphone, which is going to be paired up then with my 920, and we should have some phenomenal Safety Doc podcasts coming to you down the road with a machine exclusively built for podcasting and rendering video. But for right now, I'm doing it kind of old-fashioned, so I'm going to cobble this one together using my camcorder. Behind me you can see I have the fire going, so more of a fireside chat kind of going along with our holiday season, and I'm going to again do some editing. It won't be as smooth as some of the other videos, but hey, just wait for what's in store here on the Safety Doc. So I'm going to be reading off my notes. Typically I'd have these up on the screen, but since the computer is completely non-functional at the moment, completely, and you know, I'm going to do this old-fashioned way. I was able to get the notes printed from another laptop that I have upstairs. Snowing outside right now, quite festive. So it's nice to come back and see the trees and the Christmas lights decorated with a little bit of snow on top, and just really nice. So Safety Doc is wearing his Santa hat, more of an earthy shirt, jeans. Like I said, we're going kind of grassroots for this podcast, and we're going to take a look at safety from more of an introspective angle today. And I'm not sure this will be the only broadcast we'll do on this specific aspect of safety, but I want to start out welcoming you. I am your host, Dr. David Perodin, and I look forward to sharing the next hour with you. This podcast is brought to you in part by Sprigeo, the leader in school safety systems and online reporting. You can find out more about Sprigeo on their website, www.sprigeo.com. Ask for Joe. Say that, hey, you were sent by the Safety Doc. So if you're watching this, and by chance you're a school administrator or you're a parent, and you have kids attending school, and you're wondering, hey, what do we have for a threat reporting system in our school? A bullying reporting system, just things like that. Ask those questions, and if you want to find out more, if you want to find out from the nation's leader and a tremendous friend, good person, call up Sprigeo or email Sprigeo, talk to Joe, have him talk about how he can help make your school a safer place. I am also appreciative for the support of ISS 24/7. Proactive operations for the world's greatest properties, including Levi's Stadium, the Staples Center, and many large venues, including shopping centers. They have state-of-the-art app-based monitoring and instant resolution. I did an interview a few podcasts ago with Scott Myers. You can go back and listen to that. Just amazing how much goes into keeping venues safe, and how much of that now is all done through web-based, through phones. Just incredible. So ISS has so many untapped applications, and one is, I think it should be in every school system, but kind of my opinion on that, I see so many uses for it. It's a wonderful system, ISS 24/7, keeping you safe at large venues. Thank you to, excuse me, a little bit of hiccups here. I'd say I have a frog in my throat, but there's no frog surviving after the -5 high we had last Sunday. Thank you to John and the 405 Media for broadcasting the Safety Doc. We are on 5 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Pacific. And beginning January 30th, so some big news here for the Safety Doc, beginning January 30th, we move out of that 9 p.m. slot and move up into 1 p.m. PST. So 1 p.m. Pacific, and that will be Monday through Sunday. So 7 days a week, starting on January 30th. We'll be moving into that better time slot. So more of you on the East Coast who like to stream the 405 and listen to it would be able to access, because the Safety Doc podcast, I think, misses a few of you who go to bed a little bit early on the East Coast, when it's being broadcast at 9 p.m. Pacific. So we're looking for a new time and looking to reach a bigger audience. So thanks to John and the 405 Media. Again, I do have a lot of interviews lined up for the upcoming months. One interview is going to be actually a man who's blind, and he is going to talk about his perspectives of safety from being a blind man, and then also elements of that that would carry over in his perspective to just anybody. But there's very interesting, unique stories that he's shared. Another podcast will feature an interview with a young lady who's made several trips to Haiti, and actually just left recently to Haiti, flew there on her own to meet up with her camera crew. They're doing a documentary in Haiti, and she's going to talk about personal safety in being in a foreign country, and specific, giving some experiences from Haiti. And that's so important when we have so many people traveling through school groups or through church groups to foreign countries. And again, more and more with the way that safety is around the world, some of the tips and some of the experiences that she'll share will be priceless. So just the tip of the iceberg, and working on having a former NFL player come on and talk about his experiences with personal safety of being an NFL player, not for the fact of being at risk for being injured, but once he acquired that profile of being an NFL player, definite personal safety measures that he needed to put into place. So got some great interviews lined up, plus just analysis here from the Safety Doc. I have some research articles I think you're going to find very interesting, and also I have to say it, the Atlantic set me up with another article that is just wild. I don't like to focus too much on one publication, but yeah, this out of the Atlantic we're going to talk about. Basically talks about a vaccine type concept for I don't know if it was for anger or it was for fear. That's what it was for. It was for fear. Could you vaccinate against fear? And of course, the first thing I'm thinking is, why would you want to do that? Fear is innate forever. It's there for a reason. But anyway, again, these are articles that hit the mainstream, and then they have these outlandish titles, and people read these things, and they start to get perceptions which are so far off base. So some anecdotes. So if you're, I'm actually holding some sheets of paper here, but most of you listen to the podcast. I appreciate that. I'll give right now my plug for, please subscribe on Twitter at SafetyPhD, at SafetyPhD. I am growing in Twitter followers, but the more followers the better. The more people can learn about this podcast and this message. And then also I do have an incredible blog that I maintain. I write all of the original material for it, and you can find that once you get to Safety. You follow me on Twitter, you can track down the blog site. It's on WordPress, and then in addition to that, this is on SoundCloud, so you can find me on SoundCloud, the Safety Doc or David Proden, and you'll find the podcast. I do have the unlimited version, so you can go in and download, listen at your leisure. So in any given week, YouTube is, of course, the 405 Media is where most people listen to the Safety Doc. And then second would be on YouTube. Seems a number of people do like to see this in-person side of the Safety Doc. And then third would be people on going to SoundCloud to listen. So, but we're steadily growing and finding an audience. A little bit more, about me. I do have some books that I'm authoring right now for Roman and Littlefield, specific to school safety, but then just specific to safety in general, which are going to be coming out. And not all the books have to do with safety. So once I get into some of the books down the road, they're going to have to do more with introspection, agency and purpose, which we're going to talk about today. So again, thank you to the 405 Media for making this show possible on a large scale. Some anecdotes. So we had another winter snowstorm and below zero temperatures here in southern Wisconsin. The irony is last Sunday it was -5 for a high, and this Sunday it's going to be about 45 with an inch of rain or more expected. So incredible swing. We have a sledding hill in our backyard, so my daughters like to go out on the sledding hill, and I like it too. And I told them we were out there today, I said we better spend our time on the sledding hill because it's going to be the mud hill in about 48 hours after that inch of rain hits. But just some wild weather, and right now we've got some heavy snow going on outside. So, I'm thinking about snowstorm and below zero temperatures, and when I was growing up, so we're talking maybe like 10 years old. So, playing middle school basketball, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. One of the things I would do is go outside almost every day in winter. My friends would stop over, and we would play basketball in my driveway, shovel it off. And that was up in more like central northern Wisconsin, so you never got all the snow off. Like if the car backed out once, that became ice. And so you're playing on the slippery surface and probably playing in boots. But I'll never forget my parents let me paint with red paint a 3-point line on the driveway. And we had a 2-car garage and a basketball hoop over here, and but they let me actually paint this 3-point line, which I would probably never let my kids do, because once it's on there, it's on there. To this day, that 3-point line is still on there. I'll go up into my hometown and have I still have my taxes figured out by the same guy who's figured them out forever. And when I'm up there, I'll drive past. Kind of do a little bit of tour, it's a small town, and I go past the house I grew up in, and my parents don't live there anymore, but that 3-point line is still out there. And actually the backboard I took and I had letters put on it, and it was the Mecca. So some of you might remember that. The Mecca is where the Milwaukee Bucks played before they moved into the Bradley Center in 1988, and just think in a year they're moving into another arena, so the Bradley Center will be torn down. But that was I had the Mecca, so that was, I pretended, that's what my driveway was like. Nothing like the Mecca, by the way. But I just remember going out there and ice patches, packed down snow, and you'd play, and you'd have gloves on, or if you go, with bare fingers, they'd be white, but you just played, and you had fun, and you'd be slipping around, and the ball. You could keep the ball would bounce for a little while if you took it from inside, still warm, and then it would eventually cool down, and you really have to slam it down to get it to come back up. But there's something from a youth standpoint of a connection with the elements and nature and character that is forged when you do something like that. And not that that's any heroic act, and it's, I had a number of friends that they lived on farms, so they would go out and they'd be doing chores, year round, but it was, and we had video games, but you do some video games, but it seemed like we liked going out and playing basketball and sandlot ball and things like that. But again, today makes me think of one of those days when we would be out kind of shoveling, playing a little basketball, shovel again, play a little basketball, and it never seemed to grow old. Like we would just stay out there and just play forever. My dad was a school principal for, I believe, 35 years. And so when I was growing up, the way that school get called off is the principal or superintendent or designee, but I think it was my dad's job, a small district, would then receive word from the superintendent, yes, in the bus garage, school's going to be called off tomorrow. Then he would go through and he'd have codes he would call into the radio stations. And the thing was that, you know, this was before the internet and before cell phones and stuff like that, so I would know that school was called off before any of my friends. So I'd be able to get on the phone, and it was the old rotary phone back then. I mean, the safety doc's not that old, but it was a rotary phone, and I'd call my friends and be like, John, there's no school tomorrow. Of course, they knew if I was telling them there wasn't any school, there wasn't any school. So immediately, you know, you could stay up later and things like that. So that was pretty coveted to be getting that call from me, you know, at 8 at night or whatever, saying, nope, they're gonna call it. It's gonna be on the news later. I've done some upgrades. I talked about the Logitech camera. I got Camtasia 9, which is made by TechSmith, and so far either I'm not using the software correctly or it's just not impressive. I thought I'd be able to do a lot more with it, and Camtasia actually came out with a release after I bought the version 9. A few weeks ago. They came out like a week ago, and here's some additional audio and whatever, and it was like 8 additional tracks and a couple other backgrounds, and it just seemed like there should have been more. And I like it because I can record the screen. It's fairly easy, and I'm not into using the higher end programs, so I guess in that regard. But one thing I found is it will save in an MP4 format, which I might have talked about before, if you save audio only. And it doesn't save to MP3, so I have to go and wrangle around to get the MP3, because the MP3 is what's needed for the 405 media, for that all to work. So it's strange that they would eliminate that feature. And again, I thought I'd be able to make more cinematic type entrances and things like that, and yeah, really there's not, I wouldn't recommend probably the upgrade from 8 if you're going from 8 to 9, but and again, I like my 920, my camera. Once I get that set up and get the system, it does go more because it's a 1080 full widescreen. But the thing is, in Camtasia, I can render that, crop that down, and make that all work. But again, I had the 910, not a big difference probably between the two cameras, and you know, the 920 maybe a little bit clearer, which is good when I have over there in the background my sponsors and things like that. And again, what I've done on the Yeti's been very limited, but it sounded really, really good, so I'm looking forward to using my Yeti. I also have a special light that is aimed at me right here, a special LED light, which will then also be moved once I start doing the regular setup again, and it'll give them a little more light on me, so I don't have some shadows. So we're really getting high tech here, huh? So, and then I downloaded Audacity because I know other podcasters using Audacity, the free program, and record it on that. And will be a learning curve because it's new to me, but it looks like that's going to work out pretty well. So let me get into today's our discussion. It's agency and purpose and how those constructs inform personal safety. Again, agency and purpose. So it's a little more abstract today, but I was thinking about saving this until I got the whole system up and running, and we really could have the great audio and the great intro, and I could make sure everything was cut exactly to 60 minutes, but I think it's relevant, you know, just for this time of year to have this show recorded. So I'm going ahead. Unfortunately, you know, it's not going to have kind of all of the refinements from the editing side that I wanted it to have, but I think content-wise we'll be fine. So what is agency? So these are parts that seem to get lost when we talk about safety. And that's that, you know, people having agency and purpose and how they impact safety. Again, I'm going to talk about that. So agency is feeling in control of oneself and being able to express one's power. So again, feeling in control of yourself is having agency. Feeling needed or wanted can create a sense of power and control. You can have external agency. We see that a lot. It's common in Western civilization. How you're validated. You know, people, for example, you know, if you have a Facebook page and you have to check it all the time to see how many likes that you have and things like that. You know, and posting like, this is the best macaroni I've ever had, and waiting for someone to make a post. You know, you've really become externally validated, where your agency then becomes external. You're being defined externally. And also, you know, like, you know, some people view pay as being external agency. So, you know, if I make $300,000 a year, then, you know, that puts me at this, then I'm considered, you know, to be in the top 1% of the 1% or whatever. It's like, well, oh, I mean, it was true, I guess, but if that's one metric of how to measure yourself. But agency, I think it's very you very much need to be aware of agency in that, are you externally, I guess, motivated or validated, or internally, or what's your combination? I think all of us, of course, have some external part where we receive our agency, you know, how others perceive us, you know, friendships, things like that. But it can really go to some extremes where you can kind of lose yourself into becoming so absorbed into organizations and things like that. You know, it's like a you know, a parent, for example, that shows up at their kid's you know, soccer game, and they're just, you know, screaming, you know, get over there and, you know, block that kid and do this and do that and whatever. It's like, whoa, you're getting a lot of your agency, you know, through your child, just, you know, who's young and trying to learn the game and have fun right now. So you know, we're in this extrinsic culture, and especially this time of year, when, I mean, honestly, for Christmas, what do I want? I want a functioning computer. You know, that's that's what the safety doc wants. But I laugh at these commercials where, you know, the kid whispers in Santa's ear or whatever, and all of a sudden the next day there's a $100,000 Lexus with a bow on top out in the driveway. I'm like, well, first of all, I wouldn't want it, you know, and I think those things are so ridiculous. But you know, I don't. I'm content, you know. So extrinsically, there's not a lot of things that you could put out there, and you know, I would appreciate, you know, if somebody gets a new truck or something like that, and be like, hey, you know, that's cool or whatever. But it's not like I come home and would say, well, I want that too. So I think recognizing those things, and then, you know, we calibrate to this new norm. Think of just all of the commercials and kind of like, you know, this is what defines a happy person, or they call it the Facebook fallacy of, you know, all the pictures that people will pick to put on Facebook and the things they'll describe, yet all the things that they don't share. And then, you know, how social media, Pinterest, can, you know, research has shown can reveal tons about, you know, a person and the life that they aspire to have, that they don't have, and they aspire to have a life that may completely be fictional, that it's pieces of other people's lives that they wish that they had, instead of appreciating the life that they have. So social order is important, you know, in agency, and, you know, I the older I get, you know, I respect people. One of the things is I work, or I volunteer at Cooper Hall, which is a free lunch put on by the church. And some of the people who have done that forever, I just have so much respect for them. You know, yet, you know, they're not pulling up in expensive vehicles, and they're not wearing fancy clothes or whatever, but they're genuine, they're devoted to helping others, you know, just being subtle servant leaders and just good people. And to me, in social order, I'm looking and saying, boy, I mean, those are the people I want to aspire to be more like, versus, again, watching the TV commercial and somebody, getting behind the wheel of their $100,000, vehicle. Not as important to me for agency, but for some people that is their agency. So Aristotle's debate theory, knowing another's position, you need to know another's position in order to be able to persuade that person. I think there's a very important component in that, and we just don't take the time to understand somebody else's position. So when we talk about agency, we think we know who we are, who we want to be, and we're going to defend that no matter what. And if someone comes in with a different opinion or a different position or a different belief, the task used to be to understand that and then try to have a discussion of if you wanted to hold strong to, no, I don't, my belief is different than that, or if you want to adopt parts of their belief, or you could say, here's my, here's this person's position, here's why, they state these things, here's where I think there's weaknesses, but we don't have those. We get into this agency thing where it's like, I am right no matter what, and I'm just going to get the snowplow and push my opinion and my beliefs over top, and there's no room for anything else. So I think when we talk about when we're very externally, driven for agency, like others are dependent upon us, and we're waiting for those Facebook likes and things like that. I'm not on Facebook, by the way, but used to be, but not for a long time. But I think then you get centric, where it becomes a real threat if any positions exist that don't align to yours. Instead of trying to understand those other positions, we get that snowplow on the front and try to run them over. So, we seek to be controlling, and ultimately, I think we overestimate the control of our abilities. And that's where things, really start to go well for you. You're ascending in your career, and you think you have control over so many things, yet a company can get bought out. You can be out of a job. There can be an accident. You can have a health event. That's something that is just so real for so many people, where like Christopher Reeve, for example, thinking of everything, going on in his life, and then all of a sudden that horseback riding accident, and then paralyzed, for life. So, in saying that, I think if something like that happens and you're very externally, that's where you're seeking your agency, it's going to be a real struggle for you. We hear about this phenomena where people retire, or Buzz Aldrin. So there was a piece written about Buzz Aldrin, who was one of the astronauts, early astronauts, on the moon, and he really had a hard time adjusting once he came back to Earth, as far as with peers and at conversations, because it was such a small group of people who really could relate to what he was saying, and there was jealousy that he got to go, and but it really got to the point where he was in his apartment, he was ordering out for Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you wouldn't think this at all, but it was that sense of agency, of who he was really hard, because it was hard for him to express that, because jealousy factor. People that didn't get to go to the moon would challenge it. He had few people he could really talk to about it. And once you weren't that astronaut anymore, once you weren't going back into space, it got really hard to deal with that. Then, well, who am I? Who's this next phase? Happens all the time with sports, professional athletes. You read about this, or hear these stories of professional athletes, and one day it just ends. And I watched an interview with Don Majkowski, who was the Packers quarterback before Brett Favre. So Don Majkowski was injured in a game. Brett Favre came in, and that was the end of Don Majkowski with the Packers. He did play for a few other teams, but he was really on. He had helped elevate the Packers to their first winning season in years. I think they were 10-6 in '89, and they interviewed him just a few years ago, and I'm watching this interview, and I can definitely sense the frustration still within him about that his agency was just, the rug was pulled out from under him when he got injured and was no longer the quarterback. I mean, he had only seen himself as, I don't want to speak for him, but I guess he had seen himself as doing so many things with the team, and hopefully taking him to a Super Bowl, and everything had been kind of going his way. And then to not have that opportunity, and then eventually, you get to be so old, and it's a reality of, I'm not going to come back and be the quarterback for the Packers. And so it's not an anger at Brett Favre or anything. It's more of a realization, I think, of fate. And if you watch it very carefully, and he does a nice job during the interview, but you can tell how he subtly is reminding people of, make sure your agency, no matter what whirlwind you get caught up in, that your agency has some strong internal grounding to it, because this external that validates you, this whole organization, the Green Bay Packers and the NFL and millions of fans, that can be gone in an instant. And then if you're tied so tightly to that and so defined by that, it's really hard to find where the next steps forward are. So true agency is really from within, and it can be things like walking through nature, serving others, interacting, community meal, watching others succeed at their goals. I typically either run at night or I walk at night, depends on the weather. But I would go out. So my time outside and reconnecting with nature, and just, the world is incredible all times, but like when I'm outside, there's never a bad night. It doesn't matter if it's raining, I'll still be out if it rains. If it's severe weather, I won't be. But there's something really cool about watching the rain on a paved road, because you find out the road is up, heaved a little bit in the center, so the rain doesn't pool, it goes to both sides, and under a street light that has a really neat look to it. And in winter, it can be 10 degrees and windy, and to watch like swirling wind pick up light snow and take it and swirl it across the field, and then it finally gets to you and it just kind of swirls around you and keeps going. And then the stars on a crisp night, or a harvest moon, just so many incredible things that can help you to reestablish, I think, that internal agency of who you are, and you start asking yourself questions. That's one of the things that I did. So it's probably about 3 years ago. I went out and started to either walk or run like every night. And I weighed a lot. I don't know, between 240, 250, and it was not muscular weight. I mean, it was, fast food type, inactivity type weight. And yeah, it just wasn't a good place. I mean, and back then too, being externally, motivated through different, job promotions. And I still do a lot with, my university work and things like that. But I was really, I presented on TV in, let me see, it would have been May of 2013, May 22nd, 2013. And it was following Sandy Hook, which had happened the December prior. And I'll never forget watching myself on TV. And to this day, the broadcast is still out there. It was a solid broadcast. I put a lot into it. And I did it, I wouldn't say for external motivation. I did it because I wanted empirical evidence, empirical presentation to be out there about what school safety what the stats really showed, because there was so much hype at that time, and I think so many people, really overly terrified by the rhetoric. So I wanted to bring some rational voice to that discussion. But I remember watching that video and looking, and I just thought my face was kind of larger, bloated, I guess. I just didn't look healthy. I had a 46 or 48 sport car. I looked tough. I looked like I was playing in the NFL or something, but I didn't look healthy, you know. And a year later, after being out every night and getting into biking and stuff like that, finding really the agency of doing things that were going to be healthy for my body, and talking with my physician too. I mean, the different tests and the metrics and things like that showed the improvement, were phenomenal. But I think, that was a definite point where I looked at that and was saying, my agency needs to be first to myself, because what I'm portraying right now is someone who just isn't really healthy. Like, when I was watching this video, I'm just, I know what I'm talking about. I just don't look well. So agency structure dependent. So yeah, if you're caught up, like I talked about these people, like Don Mikowski in the NFL. The NFL is structure dependent. And those structures can change at any time. Legislation can change those structures. A reorganization can change those structures. You can, new management, whatever, the structures change. So you function within those structures, but still, like today I would say I'm loosely coupled to any of those types of structures. And by far, it has given me, I think, a stronger sense of agency than I've ever had. And one of the things, too, is, like when I go out every night pretty much, I'm always addressing some things. One is, what am I thankful for? I know it sounds kind of corny, like you read this in a book, but this is truly what I do. And most times I'll say it out loud, unless I'm like near anyone. I don't want to be the crazy guy who's talking to himself, but today people don't know if you're talking on earbud or phone or whatever. And then I'll just always ask whether it I'm Catholic, whether it be the Lord or just for the introspection of saying, you know what? I want to be more aware of my surroundings and more aware of other people, and perceive their needs, because when someone else is having a really bad day, it's easy to kind of take that personally, or else you could ask the question of, they must really be fighting some battle. Something must not be going right for them. So I hope things go better for them. Changes the perspective totally. But yeah, one of the things I just ask is to be more aware. So when I interact with people, even if it's at Walmart in the checkout line, just to be more aware and just to say, have a nice day or something like that. I remember my dad and I did a trip about 3 years ago, and we were at a restaurant, and there were ladies, elderly ladies playing some card game table kind of near us, and I went over and I said to this one lady, I said, some jewelry which matched her blouse and outfit, and I said, that looks really neat. And I said, I've been eating and just noticed, like, it's really cool. And one of her friends came up as we were paying at the front and said, that really made her day. And she said, she's like 98 years old, or something like that, and she still drives here every day or every week for like this card club. And and really my goal wasn't to go over there and to give myself a pat on the back, but it was one of those things where I was just thinking, for agency, I could be the person that goes over and says something to her which is nice and uplifting, or I could leave here wishing I would have said that. And I'm glad I said that, and because there was nothing there for me. I mean, once I drove away, I wasn't going to see this person again. But if that was my grandmother or mother or whatever, I be happy if someone, took the time to say, make a kind observation and share that. So I get a kick. A lot of organizations have mission statements where they have in the mission statement, we are an organization that embraces humor and stuff like that. In a lot of those organizations and ones I've been a part of, like, that's not accurate at all. It's words. If you express humor, which I think shows internal agency and an internal kind of grounding and confidence, you're looked down on because of that. Or like you're not taking the situation serious enough, of what's happening in the whole organization. If you can make a joke about something, and it something, completely benign, like a dry erase marker not working or something like that. So, we get into these situations too where people get so tied to the narrative of the agency and that they really lose then their own, again, personal sense, or they have to literally, put it away while they're at work and make sure it's behind lock and key, because if that starts to come out, it's perceived as this, you're not taking things serious enough or whatever. But yet, look at some of these big companies where people could take breaks and table tennis and things like that, or they're biking around the campus and stuff like that. Is that not taking things serious? No, I think it's being human. I think it's just doing things different. But so, Nick, I'm going to talk about. Ironically, I was in the least control of my body when I was seemingly able to exercise the most power onto my environment. So, back when I said when I weighed 240, 250, my cholesterol was high, my blood pressure, things like that. They were all bad, ringing the bells. And, but it was because that didn't matter to me. It wasn't important to me, or I didn't allocate the time, the priority to it, to go out and to eat more carefully, get out and be fit, to weight lift and things like that. It was more important to do that, spend more time on that special report, or to, work on a conference that I was part of, putting on, or things like that, which had value, but were just getting way out of balance. Because I knew, those things, you'd get a website and it would have your name, your bio, or you'd be announced at a conference, and yet, the irony now is, so I have the podcast, which just happened to happen, and I have a book deal, which is incredible, and it was, I once told someone, I said, if I'll just be happy if I don't have to pay to get published, and here, I get a really nice publishing contract. So those things started to come to me, and expert witness opportunities and additional college courses to instruct. And just when I started to take better care of myself and to really find agency in being healthy and also being aware, and being like literally if the 405 media contacted me and, John, don't get any ideas on this, and said, we're redoing our format and you're not going to be a part of our schedule anymore, be like, well, it was great while it lasted, that's how I would take that. I'd be glad for the opportunity, and something else will turn up and take it from there. So it's not like I would feel crushed or anything to that effect. So again, I think that's a point of growth, and just share that out there of do things. And once you show that you're deriving that agency and that awareness, I think people see that in you, and they see that competence, and they know that you're going to stand strong no matter kind of what those outside circumstances are. And I think there's something really appealing to that, especially, like in the podcast or the work that I do in expert witness stuff. And I've done some of my best college instructing certainly in the last couple of years, versus when I was looking more, I look more to encourage my students to show different ways to demonstrate learning. Back in the earlier days, I was instructing And I felt I was a very good instructor, so don't get me wrong there, but there was a little bit of a chip on his shoulder of, hey, I'm a college instructor. Well, now I have a PhD from UW-Madison, and it isn't the bio line, and I appreciate it, but what defines me, would be my experiences, and then, in my classes being able to facilitate and bring out the experiences of other people who have been to other countries and these things, and like I do these interviews on the podcast of these phenomenal people that all bring this information forward just to kind of help all of us. So, yeah, I think you can neglect your body when you're chasing these, I don't know if they're dreams, because I think sometimes you can just chase a bag of snacks, and not think of, whatever, or sit all night watching movies or things like that, and make that a habit, instead of, again, the value of spending time in nature and connecting with others. Like the time I spend with Cooper Hall is invaluable. The people that I've got to know, the people, that you learn about, and it's so interesting to hear their stories and just what they want to share, and people literally bringing up black and white photos of their kids or their siblings or spouses, photos that they've had for 40, 50 years, and want to share that story with you. And just that connection of being, it's so much more important for me to spend those hours talking, just sitting down and letting people talk, and you're listening, having that exchange. Then if I was to, again, spend time watching a movie or something like that. I can still do those, and I like doing those. But it's so, you can definitely tell that's where agency is built when you become that servant leader. The old saying, if you have your health, you have everything. Really, really true. I mean, really, really a true thing. So here's where the safety part comes in. And maybe we might have to put purpose as a second podcast. We only talk about agency during this one. I think we're going to run out of time. Again, working with a different type of setup here, but so when I think that when you're neglecting your body, like I said, when I was 240 pounds or whatever, you get to this point where you have health problems, your happiness declines, or your happiness becomes very externally created, and it presents a substantial risk to your safety prowess. So I want to put that out there. So if you're a school administrator, for example, or just, let's say, just talking to you, it blunts your ability to identify the flux as you see the reality that you believe you are fully creating or sufficiently manipulating. Think about that. I wrote that. So, you think you're in control of everything. We get to this point, where I think all of us feel that, hey, we have life by the tail, or we have certain things that we're totally in control of. And really, that's not the case at all. We're not in control nearly for as much as what we think we are. But when you think you are so in control of a situation, I think it's easy to let your guard down, for one. And the other part is you aren't as aware of the variables in your environment, because you figure it doesn't matter if these things are changing. It's like if I'm working out and I'm strong, and then I have that feedback of who I am. But if I'm not doing that, I really don't realize my prowess. I would walk. Well, the education building at UW-Madison is up on Bascom Hill, so you had to walk up a hill. I'd walk up this hill, and it was like halfway up the hill, and I'd be winded by the time this is like 4 or 5 years ago. I'd be winded by the time I got up there, had my backpack. I just thought that was normal. I'm like, this is my age and up here. And it wasn't, I didn't realize until I got fit that I could, walk. I could walk it, jog it, run it, didn't matter. I was fine. Could talk just like now, wasn't out of breath. But I didn't realize how much my body had just kind of degraded. But yet, again, powerful, position, career-wise was it, and just thinking, well, I'm fine. Have to go to a bigger size sport coat, but what else doesn't matter. Just grab this soda or whatever it could be. So I think you lose that, and I think in an organization you're less likely to tune into all of the little variables that you tuned into as you improved yourself. Meaning, an example would be reprioritizing, getting out of your office and meeting individually with your staff and listening to what they have to say, not only about like what is specifically going on in their work capacity, but if they have something else that they are sharing, like they're going on, they're taking their bike out for like a bike trip or something like that, that they can. There was one teacher who was a history buff and he was a reenactor, so he used to we would talk shop a little bit about some of the teaching stuff, but then I'd always encourage him for 3-4 minutes to talk about his latest reenactment stuff, and he loved branching off and talking about that. And I think that was good because it built this connection, built this agency. But after a while, I was losing those variables because I was spending more and more time behind my desk responding to 100+ email and voicemails, and then trying to create this image, feeding into what this image of the organization, as I perceived it was, of needing to do all this additional professional development, and then it's pretty soon you're not making those trips out, and when you do meet with people, you're meeting about because of this, and this, and it gets to you really can be isolated pretty quickly to those narrow extrinsic factors which define your agency. So your agency is you behind that desk and that power that's inherent to that position, versus the agency of being out and being real, and being, talking to people about what's going on in their lives. And so, when I walk at night, I also ask for the Zen-like awareness. I'm going to talk about this as I wrap up here, and I'm going to change it from walking to biking. One of the things, I owned a really nice bike, still own it, although I had a pretty big wipeout this summer. It's for another podcast, but so I would consider like a long bike ride, maybe like 3 to 5 miles. If I could do that, that was great. And now I'm biking, 75+ miles, easy. Like the only thing that limits me is, just probably the amount of time, during a day I have to do a trek, because I'm not going to go somewhere probably and stay overnight. But what I would do, and so all of a sudden I realized, biking 3 to 6 miles with like a higher end bike, that's really not an accomplishment. Biking 75 miles and feeling fit and enjoying that time, and having your body just respond so positively to absorbing the sun and vitamin D, and I would take I'd map out paved roads through the country, but I would do a Zen-like approach. So I would bike, and once I was out for about 15-20 minutes, and my bike, I have a nice bike, but I bike, it's like a pack mule. Like I have a lot of bags on it because I throw in a ton of water, beef jerky, the things you need when you're out biking. So, extra pump, things like that. It's okay, because I'm like, if it's heavier, that's fine. I'm not racing with it. If it's heavier, it's building muscles. The way I see it, I kind of like it that way. I know it's not like the Ghostbuster bike I described in one of my earlier podcasts. That's actually a really nice bike. But I'll do this Zen thing where I will bike, and for 5 or 10 minutes, all I will think about, and I have a little thing, it tells you the time, stuff like that, and how many miles you travel, stuff like that. But I will just think, for 5 or 10 minutes, or 5 or 10 miles, or however I do it. What do I hear? That's all I'll focus on. And then, what do I feel? Like, can I identify exactly where the sun is by like the heat on my shoulders? Or, how do I feel as I'm pushing down my feet on the pedals? Or do I feel a little bit of burn in my calves at this point? Or, am I feeling like really, like super energized? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What are you thinking? What do you smell? You can smell, that someone has cut hay fairly recently. Even, if it's kind of dusty, that has its own kind of smell. But just going so ingrained in that period of time for awareness around your settings, which again, I think helps to recalibrate, helps to get you more aware of safety, of what's going on around you. What is going on around you? And that's a great activity to do that. Because I think, again, we blunt that. We turn those things off when we get so caught up in ourselves and our everyday, life of if we make it from point A to point B, that's what we've considered that an accomplishment. But we don't, along the way, we don't realize, all of the other things that are going on. Like I could have biked that 5 years ago, hypothetically, if I would have been in shape, and I wouldn't have tuned into, the crickets or watching the waves come across the grain fields. Or even there's a railroad track at one part that's about a mile away, and you can start to feel actually the rumbling of the train just a little bit, like if you pay attention, as it starts to work its way up before it starts, honking the horn. So it's those types of things, just absolutely amazing. But we talk about agency, and I think when you do those, you become more aware of yourself and more aware of your environment. And those are two things which help you identify then changes from baseline in yourself, changes in baseline in your environment, which are the first indicators that, hey, something at risk here, safety risk might be brewing. It's when we get so lost in just these big accomplishments, or again, you get buried behind that desk at an office or something like that. Come home, throw on TV and whatever, that you lose that, or you just get used to the fact of, hey, I guess walking up to Bascom Hill is really quite a feat because I can barely make it. I catch my breath. So I don't, as far as like Zen, no, I don't sit in front of the fireplace cross-legged. Don't know if I could even do that, chanting, doing things like that. It's just this awareness. It's awareness I think it'd be good for, again, for all of us to do. What I'm talking about really goes well with Carl Weick's sense-making theory, which again, I'll talk about it another time. I do have a presentation I'd like to do about distributed leadership and sense-making. I'm going to make an argument that actually distributed leadership in a lot of organizations, especially in schools specifically, is kind of dead. Like it doesn't exist anymore. People say it exists, but I'm going to tell you reasons why I believe it doesn't exist anymore and why we need to be so in tune to sense-making. So, everybody, that's it. I am wrapping this up right now. And we should be close to, if not at, 60 minutes. So again, I'm not sure how this is all going to fully edit out. I do have 1 hour spot on the podcast. I hopefully will have all of the computer stuff up, and we should be better than ever here in a couple of podcasts. I'm wishing you happy holidays. Take care of yourself. Prioritize. Realize what's important in life. Take time to do that. Take time to read a book. Get out in nature. Get out and walk. If you're in a warmer area, get out and bike. Just be outside. Just be outside in the sun. Sit by a river. Just sit on a bench. Take life in. So, again, I'm wishing you and yours a happy holiday season here from the Safety Doc on the 405 Media.
Welcome to the Safety Doc podcast with your charismatic host and prominent safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Be entertained and informed as the Safety Doc discusses both best and bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. The truth will keep you safe. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter @SafetyPhD.